Screen Blurb.
Hello and welcome to Screen Slurps, the movie review podcast where we discuss everything that is good, bad, and savage in the world of cinema. I'm Adam Meisner.
And I'm Dash Gearhart, and this week we are reviewing the personal history of David Copperfield.
And that is not to be confused with the magician David Copperfield. I will not be teleporting away.
But it can be confused with Daisy Copperfield. Both are one and the same.
Ooh.
Yes, they are.
A nice little flower? You mean daisies?
I do mean daisies. He goes by Daisy, and he also goes by David.
And not Rosie Copperfield?
Not Rosie Copperfield, not Tulip Copperfield, not Daisy Ridley Copperfield, but David Copperfield.
Damn it.
Damn it. Anyway, yeah, that's the movie we're doing this week, folks. But before we get into that, I gotta ask Mr. Meisner, what has he been slurping this week? And by that, I mean, what has he been reading, watching, playing, making this past week besides watching the personal history of David Copperfield?
I was ready to learn all about the different bouquets of flowers, the daisy, rosy, I can't think of any other flowers right now. It's just daisies and roses right now. Well, what I've been doing, I've been playing video games, of course. Playing a little League of Legends. Honestly, it's been like a flashback to high school. You've been playing League of Legends before, haven't you, DJ?
I have not. I've not played League of Legends at all. I've been interested in it, and I just haven't gotten around to it.
You should give it a try. With all the Fire Emblem that you've played, just pick it up, give it a try. A MOBA, as they call it.
A MOBA.
It sounds like a type of vehicle you'd drive, honestly, but League of Legends, it's a pretty good game, and it really throws me back into my high school saddle again, but not a bad game. Not a bad game to try. Here is a very interesting thing that also brings me back to high school, and this is on the television spectrum. Me and my girlfriend both sat down and we watched the pilot episode of two different shows to kind of compare and contrast them. And the shows that we compared and contrasted were Secret Life of the American Teenager and The O.C.
Yeah, The O.C. Heck yeah.
And they're both... I was in the chair of defending Secret Life of the American Teenager because when I was younger, I was really into Shailene Woodley, who in film news, listeners out there, Shailene Woodley is engaged to Aaron Rodgers for the Green Bay Packers.
I did not know that.
This is news.
She is a really cool person. I remember following her a lot when she was like fighting real hard at the protest in the Dakota pipeline that was happening, and she was fighting real hard for all the Native American community up there, and she even got arrested for it. And I think she's a hero. She stands up for human rights, and she's a good person, I think.
Not gonna lie, I used to really crush hard on Shailene Woodley when I was a young laddie back in high school. And that's really why I was watching Secret Life of the American Teenager when I was younger. Now I'm watching it as an adult, just to kind of reminisce on why I was watching Secret Life when I was younger. It's more like, what was it about this show that was interesting? And so I was just kind of reflecting on that. And I think it's very interesting that Shailene Woodley's engaged to Aaron Rodgers now, but it was a very interesting show for its time. And to think the whole show revolved around Shailene Woodley's character was a high schooler in the show. It was about a high schooler who became pregnant at band camp, and this is a show that was made for, I believe it was ABC Family. So that was a big topic for an ABC Family show. Taking a look at that against the OC, which was a little bit more, even more intense, in a little bit of a different spectrum. And I thought the OC was intense mainly because in my perspective, I think it was because of the cinematography, which the OC was a little bit more reliant on the handheld cinematography, or maybe even maybe it was like shoulder mounts and things like that. It moved a little bit quicker. It was just a lot more rigorous with the OC. And I'm just a huge fan of Peter Gallagher too. I just really like Peter Gallagher's acting. I think he's a great dude.
Me too.
Yeah.
I love Peter Gallagher. He's such a good dad figure.
And I used to be a huge Kevin Spacey fan with his acting, and now I can't help but look back on American Beauty and think to myself, well, Peter Gallagher is also just awesome in American Beauty. So what can I say? So looking at The Secret Life of the American Teenager and The OC, I think I'm really going to like watching both of those shows, maybe even watching them both at the same time. I'm going to get lost in both of them because I never finished Secret Life of the American Teenager. I think when I was younger, I watched the first 2 seasons and then kind of just gave it up. And with the OC, I have never seen anything past the first episode, so I definitely want to watch the rest of that. They both look like great shows. So
the first season is like kind of like Lost or Heroes. They not outdid themselves. They went too far on making great TV, and it was really hard to outdo the first season.
Yeah.
The first season of Lost, I believe, is the best. First season of Heroes and first season of the OC, the best. Like, it is so good. Yeah, the best, in my opinion, is all in the first. Even though I do enjoy the whole series, it's all in the first season for sure.
It's always a shame when that happens with television shows. You start watching it and the first season or the first 2 seasons just hit a slope where it's just like, oh, this is so good. And then the third season or the third and the fourth season or something just go way downhill. You're kind of like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Well, I will say this, though, and I could be wrong about this, but I know Heroes and Lost suffered this, and I think the OC suffered this, too. That was around the writer's strike that happened. So I suppose not all of the... I mean, I shouldn't blame people for that, but like it... Yeah, especially if it comes to like art, like that kind of, just television. But I think that they suffered as well because of the writer's strike, and it was hard to like get back on track. So I will say, though, they did 2 years, though, in the OC, where they say that the main kids cast are 17 for 2 years in a row. Like, literally, it's not like they had 2 seasons all taking place within the same year. They literally went through two high school years, and they were 17 years old. I think they repeated their junior year and repeated their 17th year. So if we could only do that, if we could all repeat our 17th year, 17 again, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think that was probably one of the biggest things I did in this past week. And other than that, I know I had already mentioned this to Dash listeners, but me and him were just talking about there's a new version of MySpace that has hit the internet called Space Hey. If you want to check that out, there's a nice article on Vice that was released that talks about the creation of this. And I think the funniest part about that article on Vice that just blew my mind is that the creator of this website, I will say boy named Ann, made this website. And
it's just A-N, right?
Yeah, A-N. And he's 18 years old. He has never had a MySpace before. And he explains that when MySpace was a thing, he was just so young. He was too young to even have a MySpace. He was, I forget exactly how he mentioned what terminology he had used to explain it, but he was hardly any years old when MySpace was in existence. So he basically had to research what MySpace was like when he was building Space Hey to be like MySpace. But I would say after looking over his website, Space Hey, he did a pretty good job of making it like MySpace. And I think it looks a lot and acts a lot like what MySpace was through its simplistic looking coding and the way it acts in terms of building your profile to be like a simplistic website. And it just really brings me back to that feeling of having a simple website. It just feels nice to kind of go back to that feeling of having a basic website. And it's so funny, it makes me feel like I'm playing a vinyl record almost, because at the time when vinyl records were a thing, everyone wanted the next best thing, which was CDs or tapes, and they wanted the next best thing, which were CDs, and from CDs it's it's DVDs, and you keep expanding. And now in our current day and age, no one really uses CDs anymore, and from DVDs, it's Blu-ray discs, but everyone wants a vinyl record now. And so where are we in this day and age? Well, we moved from MySpace to Facebook to Twitter. We've got, we had Vine videos, and we moved from Vine to TikTok. And where do we go from there? Well, now we've got MySpace again. Now we've got a new MySpace. We want that old-fashioned MySpace again. It's just we keep going in these cycles. It's natural. It's been history forever. We keep going in a cycle, and we like that. And or at least I do. I enjoy that. I like having the old-time history back. And, it's like watching shows that are like film noir almost. It's like seeing movies that are like the old detective dramas. And it's kind of like, where do we get that enjoyment from, or that pleasure from watching an old-time, 1930s, 1940s-esque movie where you see the old detectives, or you watch a show like Mad Men where they're in these old noir-esque bars and things like that, and then we think to ourselves, man, I wish bars like that still existed, or man, why can't we have something like The Great Gatsby that looks like that? I wish I had a house that looked like that. And it's kind of like, yeah, you want it to be like the old times again. Like, you have that desire, and so people make something like that, and you feel a pleasure or an enthrallment from that. It's natural. It's just natural. And so someone has done that now with MySpace. I find that fascinating.
It is. Yes. Nostalgia at its best with what your space?
Space Hey.
Space Hey. Sorry. Space Hey.
Yes. No, hey as in hello, not hey as in like farm hay, but
woo! It is exciting. Check out Space Hey. What else have you been slurping, bud?
Oh, that's really the big stuff. It's been a circle between video games, television, and Space Hey. Nice. I tell you what, Bobby.
I tell you something about my side slurps, and that is, Adam, I completed the final main path of Fire Emblem Three Houses.
I was gonna ask. I knew there was gonna be a Fire Emblem in there somewhere. Some fire was gonna start or end.
I completed the fourth and final main path of Fire Emblem Three Houses. It is an incredible game. I'm not going to talk about it much today, but it is so good. If you guys get it, listeners, guys and gals, I recommend playing the Dimitri storyline first. All of them are great. I didn't really like the Black Eagles one, the one where you follow Edelgard, because I just don't like being bad guys. But the Dimitri storyline is so good. So are the other paths, but that is my personal favorite path line.
I mean, if you're going to be a bad guy, just go play Knights of the Old Republic.
I tried being a Sith in that, and I just couldn't. I felt so bad, like being shitty to everybody just to get the Sith points. And but yeah, it is so good. I just have the DLC storyline left, which is like this underground house that you join and lead. I think I'm going to take a break though. I think I might come back to it later. I just need to kind of shake it off and, but yeah, it's such a good game. I love it. I love Fire Emblem Three Houses so much. It's my favorite game of all time. Anyway, I also been keeping up on Servant on Apple TV Plus. There are, time of this recording anyway, there are new episodes coming out every Friday. And it is so good. It stars Toby Kebbell, Lauren Ambrose,
Ron Weasley.
Ron Weasley, Rupert Grint, and Nell Tiger. Let's see, what was her name? She was actually one of the Lannister kids in Game of Thrones. She was second to last Lannister died. She was the one that fell in love with one of the Dorne princes and she was killed by poison, the character anyway. But it is Nell Tiger Free, so she's in it too. So those are the main cast. It's Lauren Ambrose, Toby Kebbell, and Nell Tiger Free, and Rupert Grint, Ron Weasley, and it is so good. The executive producer for it is I believe, and he does other things for it too, such as directing and writing, but it's M. Night Shyamalan. He oversees the show, and it is fantastic. It's nice to see something like this, like that's very suspenseful and thrilling, have room to breathe, and like literally it's really hard to predict what's going to happen because, we've all seen most of us seen lots of M. Night Shyamalan films, and such as like The Village or Signs, and sometimes you can kind of predict what's going to happen, but it's really hard because of the serial format, and that's exciting. It's refreshing, so I really recommend it. Go watch Servant on Apple TV Plus. I know it's another streaming service, but it is worth it. Also, there's other really great series on there, such as Defending Jacob. So anyway, I've also dove back into Neon Genesis Evangelion. Neon Genesis Evangelion.
For a second, I thought you were going to say Neopets.
Neopets and Gigapets and Digimon. No, Neon Genesis Evangelion, which is on this new dub, has been on Netflix for a while. And I know a lot of people don't like the new dub, and some people do. I personally don't. It doesn't matter to me because I never saw it back in the day. I mean, this was originally on in Japan back in 95, 96. So I was a little kid when that came out. And so like all this, I mean, it's about like a lot of really fucked up stuff. For instance, have you seen this, Adam? Have you seen Neon Genesis?
No, I haven't.
It's
Is
really
this,
interesting.
Some old school anime or?
Yeah, 90s anime, and like it's like one of those like mech robot, giant robots versus like other giant, almost kind of like kaiju, but it's giant mech robots, kind of like
Around the
Gundam.
time of like Akira?
Yeah, around that time. Yeah, mid 90s to late 90s, and it has a lot to do with like, so basically maybe or maybe not God sent these giant monsters that humanity calls angels, and they're there to destroy humanity, and they may have been sent by God. I don't know yet. And so humanity, at least the futuristic city Tokyo 3's response is to send giant robots, and I forget why. It's a really weird reason why, but I forget why. That only these like teenagers can pilot.
I mean, we all have our
free.
reasons. Just get those robots down there.
Yeah, and get little kids, or like not little kids, but like teenagers to pilot them, which is really strange. Anyway, other than like these big mech battles, these big mech giant robot battles, you also have like these kids that you think they're going to be like these like plucky heroes. They literally they go insane. They literally like lose their minds.
The kids are the robots,
and they are in the robots. But the thing is like, it's all this like stuff with like religious symbolism and like sexual change, especially at that age. Yeah, well, like it's not like porn, but like it's all these like feelings of going through, like teenage puberty and stuff, and like all these crazy thoughts you have, and you're not.
Wait, so what are the robots doing then?
And also like mommy and daddy problems, like Oedipus complexes and Electra complexes, and
I need to watch this.
And having like Shinji, who's the main character, has like this terrible relationship with his dad, who's actually evil, and he's screwed up because of him, and he's going through all these changes, let alone also trying to save the world from God. And
what?
So it's dude, I still haven't. Okay, I'm really looking forward to the end because I've heard so much about the end and how batshit crazy it is at the end. Like literally the way the show starts out is nothing compared to like what it becomes, especially once you get to episode 16, I believe. And it's just like one season, really. It's just like one season, and then you have like these two endings that are like, there's two endings to it. You know, it's almost like a video game, like the alternate endings. And one's a movie and one's just the final episode of the show. So, and literally like fucked up shit I heard happens. Like, I'm not going to get into it on the show. I'm going to let you know once I finish it. But like, I feel bad to say, like, I really want to watch what everybody says about this that's so screwed up and so weird. And because it
sounds
like
weird.
It has like this happy song, like starts out and it's all like poppy and like, I don't know. It just feels like, okay, it's just like Gundam Wing or something like that, but it is not. It has to like to do with like mental illness and like psychological problems and just, I don't know, man. I don't have like an actual good assessment. I'm just saying that I have a lot of intrigue for it. Also, once I got past like the episode 16, some of it was a little hard to watch. It's not like I said, it's not an easy show to watch once you get to the deep, dark, gritty stuff. But like, I have to watch it. I gotta watch it. Anyway, speaking of really hard stuff to watch, but still important to watch, I started watching, oh boy, I didn't even write it down. It's on Hulu. It's the Britney Spears documentary on Hulu. I don't know about you, Adam, but when I was in 6th grade and was it 5th or 6th grade, and Britney Spears like just became incredibly popular, and it was during the Hit Me Baby One More Time music video came out, and like I couldn't not like be obsessed with her.
It already hit you one more time.
It was literally like a sexual awakening. I was like, Britney Spears is the hottest girl ever in the whole world. Like,
some guy I went to school with wanted to trade me the CD on the bus because I had a different color than he did of the CD, and I refused. I was like, no.
Remember my aunt, like she like won some CDs, like it was an NSYNC CD and like a Britney Spears Hit Me Baby One More Time CD, and she's like, DJ, do you want one of these CDs? And you get to pick. I'm like, okay, I'll choose the Britney Spears one. And like, and back then, I was very attracted to Britney Spears as a 12-year-old, but also I did really like the music too. I like singing and dancing to it. So as a 12-year-old with all this like toxic masculinity around me, and you know, I just like, yeah, Britney's just so fucking hot. Yeah. But also this song's pretty good too. Like, you know, I would do that to like mask how I actually like the songs. Like, yeah, I'm not a sissy. I just think she's hot. That's all. But like, also I really like singing Sometimes I Run, Sometimes I Hide, Sometimes I'm Scared of You, or You Drive Me Crazy. I fucking love the songs. I love the songs too. Anyway, I'm not ashamed anymore. I'm not ashamed. I'm in my 30s. Bite me, toxic masculinity dudes. Anyway, I feel bad for Britney because there is Framing Britney Spears is the title of the documentary. It was made by the New York Times. It's on Hulu. It is devastating to see how she was treated, taking a step back and watching what was done to her, especially by the paparazzi, and how it just... She like, mental illness was also not a thing that people talked about much back then. It was more taboo. It was more of like, oh, you got a problem, just suck it up. Like, it's just people being fucking assholes and like not taking like therapy seriously and thinking like, oh, you're fucking crazy if you go to therapy. Like all this, like, again, a lot of it has to do with toxic masculinity too. And she was mistreated so bad. Well, now she is in this legal conservatorship from her father, Jamie Spears, that she is like all her like personal, like, well, at least professional affairs and her finance decisions are made by her dad, and she's trying to get out of that. And these conservatorships are really made for like, you know, senior citizens that like are no longer able to make good decisions because they're physically unable, like mentally and physically unable because they're so old. So they have like a, you know, legal conservatorship that takes care of them. Well, she doesn't need that. She's not even 40. And like her dad is like, she's almost like a slave to her dad, which is like fucking insane.
And she's got a song about that. I'm a slave for you.
Gross if it's about her dad. But like in a way,
bad.
she is a slave. Not that kind of slave, I hope.
Yeah.
Dad.
Oh,
But,
God.
like, anyway, so I haven't watched all of it yet, but like I really hope Britney Spears is gonna be okay because she's great. No, I no longer have a crush on her, but I did when I was 12. But I hope that she's gonna be okay. And yeah, with that, she doesn't deserve that. And God, what else have I been watching? Okay, some last thing, which is I revisited. A little bit of a lighter note. The Disaster Artist. I own it, and it's a movie about the making of The Room, which is considered the best B movie ever. And it is so fun to go back and watch all the insane, funny stuff from that movie. And I've had the book for a while. And before we get into David Copperfield review, I have just a little excerpt I want to read from the book, which made me laugh. I just pulled it out and I just read this scene where Greg Sestero, Tommy's best friend, Tommy was his best friend, and him were picking out plays to read as scene partners. And as they're going through plays as scene partners, here's what Greg said. He's talking about Tommy here. Greg says, he suggested The Glass Menagerie, claiming Tennessee Williams was his favorite playwright, but I suspect that was because he knew Williams had written A Streetcar Named Desire, a movie he obviously loved. The Glass Menagerie had enough scenes in which the play's two male characters interacted without others present, and I wanted to see Tommy do something more modern. Let's try something different, I said, more contemporary. I handed Tommy some plays that had been written within the last decade. I'd annoyed him, it seemed. He didn't accept the plays and removed his sunglasses. Why do you have donut hairstyle? I looked back at him confused. What? You have the donut hairstyle? Whatever he meant, I didn't respond. Anyway, donut hairstyles. Why you have donut hairstyle, Adam?
I do not. What you talking about? I do not.
Anyway, with that said,
Is that where the term just comes from? I do not.
pray for Britney Spears. Check out Neon Genesis Evangelion. Pronounce it correctly, unlike me. Don't judge those kids. Blame Shinji's dad for bad parenting. And go watch The Personal History of David Copperfield, which is the movie we are reviewing today. Yes, on Screen Slurps. The Personal History of the... I'm not going to do like telling you this. The Personal History of David Copperfield is a 2019 comedy drama film written and directed by Armando Iannucci. It was based on the 1850 Victorian-era novel David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. It stars Dev Patel as the title character, and Erin Bernard, Peter Capaldi, Moore Fide Clark, Daisy Mae Cooper, Rosalind Elazar, Hugh Laurie, Tilda Swinton, Ben Whishaw, and Paul Whitehouse. The world premiere was at the Toronto International Film Festival on the 5th of September of 2019. It was theatrically released in the United Kingdom on January 24th, 2020 by Lionsgate UK, and in the United States on August 28th, 2020 by Searchlight Pictures. The screenplay is by Simon Blackwell and Armando Iannucci, and it was also produced by Armando and Kevin Loader. And music was by Christopher Wells. Cinematography was by Zach Nicholson. It was edited by Mick Aldsley and Peter Lambert. And let's see here. Yeah, like I said, it was distributed by Lionsgate UK and Searchlight Pictures in North America. And yeah, its running time was 119 minutes. And the budget was $15.6 million, and the box office was $14.2 million. Now that's up there considering the last few films we've reviewed that were newer, especially during the pandemic. But I'm guessing that it was still affected by the pandemic since it was a 2019 film and it was released in the beginning of 2020 in the UK, January 24th, 2020.
Right.
So my guess is that it was off to a good start, and then it kind of peeled off because shit started to hit the fan with COVID-19. But still not bad, and it's almost kind of like having like a little bit of a resurgence now on streaming, so that's good. But yeah, this is a film that's almost like a period piece, and it is very theatrical. So Adam, this is the first time that I watched this film. Was this your first time? And if it was, what are your feelings, thoughts, and some maybe facts that you have about it?
Yeah, this was the first time I have seen this film. I thought this came out a little more recently. I guess it is the year 2021 now. I thought this was actually a 2020 movie as I was researching it, but it goes back even further than that, 2019, as I was looking into it. But yeah, I didn't really know anything about this movie until I started digging into some of the facts about it, and I started watching it, and I thought it was very interesting as I started watching it. I think the first thing that really caught my interest as I began to watch this movie was how diverse the cast was, the multi-ethnic casting in this, which is actually starting to pull up in a lot of new, I will say, sort of like BBC shows and things like that. I will say I'm seeing that in the new show Bridgerton with the BBC, which is really popular because of the Bridgerton novel series that has a very multi-ethnic casting as well. But it really helps this movie a lot, I think, due to the casting with this. And you wouldn't expect that with a movie based upon the David Copperfield story from Charles Dickens. You wouldn't expect to see a cast quite like this based upon the book by Charles Dickens. But I think it really helps with this movie. And I think I really enjoyed this movie so much more because of the cast that was in this movie. I think Dev Patel as David Copperfield was just fantastic. I thought
he's British too.
Yeah, I thought his place in this movie was just right for the character, and I thought everyone else in their spots it was just the right feeling for what it was. I thought the type of casting for this movie was just right. It just felt so right for this, and I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. On that note, I think really the technical stylings of the film were really what kind of sold it for me. Were really kind of like the saving grace, as David Copperfield was kind of the narrator for his own story in the beginning. That was really kind of the opening of the movie, was him saying, this is my life story, and he's explaining to everyone, he's narrating what his life was like. That really helped open the movie and really helped bring everything out. And I really liked how playful it was as things progressed. The outfits for everyone were really well put together. The scenes, the way everything looked, the way the camera looked and everything, and the transitions, it was just very well put together. And you can see the influence from scene to scene was playing off of different genres of film. They had a scene much later in the movie that was clearly playing off of very Charlie Chaplin-esque type of movie. It was very much like a silent film style. That I thought it was just really cool. It's very cool to see that they're playing off of all of these different styles throughout the film. And as we talk about the film in different spots, I'll dive deeper into what I thought was nice and maybe what I didn't like about the film. But I thought that throughout the film, there were just spots, mainly in the beginning, though, that as I was seeing David Copperfield's character as a boy, mostly, I thought it was really kind of dragging along a little bit, and I had a really hard time getting really attached to the story because there's just so many characters in this movie that get introduced, and it's kind of a nice thing, and at the same time, it's really kind of a tough thing to get attached to this movie because every single supporting character in this movie, if you really don't dedicate yourself to this movie and really focus to the movie, every single supporting character in this movie is so important and means so much to Dev Patel's character of David Copperfield. They are so important that unlike any other show or any other movie where a supporting character kind of comes in a scene and leaves and you can kind of just forget about about them and you're like, they're not the protagonists, they don't matter. In this movie, every single supporting character is important, and they almost have their own story that is like its own movie in the movie. I mean, they all play into the main story arc, and it's kind of hard to follow a little bit, but at the same time, later on in the movie, if you can just follow that movie to the very end, Dev Patel, or David Copperfield, I should say, he does explain and he does hook it all back if you can just pay attention. But I had a really hard time with that in the beginning. I was kind of struggling a little bit following along with, like, who the hell is this character? Or, like, what is your place in this movie? Because they would introduce one person, introduce two, and I've got about, like, 10 different people that are getting introduced to me, and I'm like, who are all these people?
And sometimes it was hard to see, like, who was real. Like, for instance,
exactly.
And we're gonna get into plot, ladies and gents. So yeah, spoiler alert. In the beginning, when we see him go to that boathouse, in quotes, boathouse, and he's really super happy to be there, and you know, he has like these adults that like, and he, keep in mind, David Copperfield at this point is a child, and he is, you know, loving his life, loving the people around him, and then like all of a sudden we get to like this like supernatural like transition of a giant hand coming in and like I guess grabbing him, I forget, but anyways, giant hand coming into the boathouse, and it's his new stepdad, which is awful, and who just married his mom, and it's now he's, you know, transported back to the house that he was in with his mother and with his new stepdad who's very abusive, and it's like, okay, I guess that wasn't real, but then later in the movie you see that, oh, it was real. So it's really hard to kind of like keep up with what's real.
I felt
what's
the
going
exact
on.
same way. I'm glad you felt that way too, because as soon as I saw that giant hand come down, and it was his stepdad, Edward Murdstone, as soon as I saw that hand come down and break out of that, and his stepdad is saying, "What are you drawing? Like a boat that's a house? They can't be the same thing. It's one or the other."
Yeah. So I was like, oh, it's in his dreams. It's in his imagination.
Yeah, it can't be a real place. He can't actually be
but
there.
Then it was.
And then it was.
I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm like, wait, okay, so if it was, when did you go there?
And
like,
they were all real people. They were all real people that he was with
when he was adults. Yeah. And also you'd see like these really, like, for instance, I did like that hand transition. That was cool. And like they also do like these other like it reminded me of like a stage play. It reminded me of theater, back in my theater days. And it reminded me of, like, for instance, at times when they were doing like a flashback, you would see like this, like, I guess non-diegetic, that's like a sound term for movies, but like you see like this like surreal projection of a memory on the back wall of the characters for like a literal projector. You wouldn't see the projector, but you'd see what is being projected on a back wall of a house in front of the characters as they were talking about a memory. And you see the memory play out on a film that's being projected. Or you would see like the characters come in, or you'd see Dev Patel as David Copperfield talking to himself or viewing himself as a child being in that memory. And it's very intentional aesthetics that were chosen by the director. The thing is, though, is that sometimes it was a little like, whoa, I forgot it was that kind of movie. It was those elements were very spaced out throughout the movie, and I liked them. I did really like them, but there were huge gaps in between them, because at times I thought like, okay, I'm just watching like a period piece, you know. But then we'd see these magical realism elements, and I'd be like, oh, I forgot it was almost kind of like whimsical movie. So it's a very light critique, but like I either wanted none of that or I wanted more of that, you know? Yeah. I didn't want the spacing of those to be so spread out. So with that, the performances of this, it is tremendous. It's the best part of the film. Like, everybody is so good in this. The casting is fantastic. I mean, we have Dev Patel, who is so good. I love it. I cannot wait to see him in The Green Knight by A24. I'm really excited to see him in that. And Dev Patel is so good. He is an excellent actor. And yeah, he's from England, and he, you know, got really big when he was in Slumdog Millionaire, and Also, like, he's been in like awesome stuff, considering that what was a movie that he was in where he had to search for his mom, and his girlfriend was Rooney Mara, and he lived in Australia, and he was going through all these memories that he was talking, or that he experienced with his brother, who I think ended up dying. Grant, I mean, this is a film, but it was actually based on Lion. He was there with his brother. And sorry, Lion. It's just called Lion. Yeah, Lion was so good. He was amazing in Lion, and this actor is so good. And it was so cool to see him in this film that I mean, we're gonna point the elephant in the room. Like, generally, probably wouldn't be cast in traditionally, but you know what? Fuck tradition. It's awesome that he got to be, because he's British. He's British. He grew up in England. He is British. Just because he's a brown guy doesn't mean he's not British. He's British, and you know, why not play David Copperfield? You know, I mean, it's a novel by Charles Dickens. Why not? And I love that they had a very diverse cast, and they also didn't say, look how diverse this is, or they didn't market it as that, which I'm so grateful for.
You and I have talked about this before, and so the point now is they don't have to say that anymore. No filmmaking crew, no production company needs to say that. Just let them do that. And I saw comments I was looking at some of the critic reviews of this movie, and I saw in the comments section of the Roger Ebert review of this, there was a guy who was blowing up about this, and he was like, why wasn't, the entire cast all white people? Because, if a bunch of white people were to star in a movie about black people, then everyone would be freaking out.
Colonialism, you prick. Yeah. Not you, but that guy.
No, I got you.
Yeah. You're not a prick. But yeah. Oh my God, such fucking, like, I hate it when people are not aware of white privilege. Anyway, I'm white. I know how it is. I mean, I'm not all white, but definitely at least more than half white. Anyway, with that said, yes, a very, not just diverse cast, but just awesome cast. I mean, you have Tilda Swinton in it. You have Benedict Wong in it from Doctor Strange.
Hugh Laurie.
Yeah, you have Rosalind Elazar. You have Doctor Who in it. You know, Peter Capaldi. You have Gwendolyn Christie, from Game of Thrones. Like, you have like all these amazing actors in this, and it was. So here's the thing that made me enjoy it more. When I let go of thinking like, okay, what now? What's going to happen? Thinking I was really concentrating on the plot of it. But when I let that go and I let myself just kind of hang out with the characters, it was much more enjoyable. It was much more pleasurable to just feel the company of these people.
I would have had a hard time following the plot of this movie, because I really had no idea where the plot was going, because every sub-character had their own plot. Every single sub-character had their own problems going on, because I honestly can't even remember every single little subplot that every character had, because there's the point where the one girl, Emily, who was supposed to hook up with the other guy who lived in the boathouse, she flees off with Steerway on the boat.
David's
and
best friend, yeah,
and everyone's like, where'd she go? And she's like, I'm leaving and I'm not coming back. And they're like, we need to go get Emily. And so that's one thing you don't expect to happen, but it happens, and you think, are they actually going to get Emily back, or are they not? And so
she wrote this letter. It's like, I'm going, pretend I'm dead. It's like, well, she doesn't want to be found. Like, why do you want to get her back, dude, if she's like gonna leave you? And it was pretty wacky in terms of the screenplay and the directing, the set design, the costume design on this, and I'll say again, the performance in this were tremendously fantastic. It was fantastical. So I have like a little blurb here about the plot for people who haven't seen this, and I want to know a little more about it. So here we go. The life of David Copperfield is chronicled from his birth to the present day. David has an idyllic life and is taken to visit the family of his nanny Peggotty, played by Daisy May Cooper, in their boathouse in Yarmouth. When he returns, his young and widowed mother, Clara, played by Morfydd Clark, has married the sinister and cruel Mr. Murdstone, played by Darren Boyd, who beats the boy. The abused David Copperfield, played by David Patel, as we said, is sent to work in Murdstone's factory, where he lodges with Mr. Micawber, played by Peter Capaldi, aka a former Doctor Who, or Doctor, as Doctor Who, anyway, and his family, who are pursued by their creditors. After being told of his mother's death and funeral, David escapes from his life, so he's an adult at this point, from his life of drudgery, and finds his wealthy Aunt Betsy Trotwood, played by Tilda Swinton, and her lodger, the eccentric Mr. Dick, played by Hugh Laurie.
House.
After troubling problems with Steerforth, played by Anna Bernard, the Uriah Heep, thank you, played by Ben Woodshaw. Betsy Trotwood finances David's ambition to become a gentleman and author. I mean, more shit happens after that, but yeah, I mean, he goes up and down, he falls in love, but it's more of like infatuation, obsession, and love. And also, who was that? The first girlfriend that he had, not the one he marries, but the one with the dog.
Dora.
Her name. She looked strikingly similar to his mother.
And they were the same person. They were the same actress.
Nothing against these people, but I am not one of those people that goes after someone or is attracted to someone that looks like my mother. Nothing against my mother. She's a beautiful woman, but I never had an affinity or even an inkling of wanting to date or be married to or want to whatever someone that looks like her, and I never understood that. And there's some people that like are attracted to people that look like their siblings, and I get it. It's not as bad as actually dating your parent or actually dating your sibling. It's not that bad, but it's still pretty weird. And the thing is that I've known people who are also like that. It's a real thing. I know people like that, and it's strange, but whatever. I mean, cool, man. So David Copperfield totally digs someone that looks exactly like his mother, but he doesn't marry her. He'd marry someone else. He ends up with someone else. So.
He ends up with Dora the Explorer.
Dora was the dog. Dora had the dog. Dora
exactly.
Was
well,
his
yes,
mom. Yeah.
not literally his mom, but they were the same actress.
But he doesn't end up with her though. He ends up with oh boy,
Agnes.
He ends up with Agnes. Remember, he has babies with her at the end.
Oh yes, that is true.
Yeah, he does not end up with Dora with the doggy that looks like his mother. Agnes. So yeah, and with that plot blurb that I read off, it seems like a pretty straightforward plot, but like it's really kind of all over the place. And the thing is, like, I don't know, like, I'm a little annoyed, but the thing is, like, maybe it's me. Maybe it's me expecting too much. Maybe it's me expecting this, like, thrilling tale or whatever. Maybe it's just about, like, watching people live life, watching this boy grow into a man and go through ups and downs. You know, at one point he has everything, and another point he has nothing, and then one point he has everything, and another point he has nothing, and then another point he has everything. And then there are points he helps out people around him who lose things, you know. And then at the end he comes out on top and ends up happy, and he's developed this like network of people, this like, you know, chosen family basically that he's assembled throughout his life. And he ends up ending on a note, looking and talking to his younger self, the actor who played the child, David Copperfield, that everything is going to be okay. And, you know, you're going to go through hardship, but, in a paraphrase, but like, it'll be a wild ride and you're going to come out on top, which is, you know, it's very nice. And it's, you know, don't we all want to like go back to ourselves, you know, when we're little and be like, hang in there, bud. Like, you're going to be okay. You know, just persevere. This is going to be tough, but you're going to be okay. Yep. Also, the child, David Copperfield, is played by Jiraj Barsani, It was really good. He's the one that bites. But bites bad guys. He bites the bad stepdad. Anyway, but it is what it is, And the at the box office, like we were talking about, the personal history of David Copperfield had grossed 1.9 million in the United States and Canada and 12.3 million in other territories for a worldwide total of 14.2 million against a production budget of 15.6 million. And, it kind of got affected by COVID-19. But on Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 92% based on 239 reviews with an average rating of 7.6 out of 10. The website's critics consensus reads, "The personal history of David Copperfield puts a fresh, funny, and utterly charming spin on Dickens' classic, proving some stories truly are timeless." On Metacritic, the film has a weighted average score of 77 out of 100 based on 39 critics, indicating generally favorable reviews. Post-Track reported that 74% of audience members gave the film a positive score, with 50% saying they would recommend it.
50%?
50% saying they would recommend it. Writing for The Observer, Mark Kermode awarded the film a full 5 stars and stated, "It really is a wonderfully entertaining film, managing to both respect and reinvent the novel from which it takes its lead." I wonder if I would feel differently about this film, Adam, if I had read the book. I never read this book before. I never read this Charles Dickens book. Have you?
And neither have I. And also, I want to go back to the Rotten Tomatoes review you were speaking of, because I see that 92% of critics have given this a positive review. However, it's only got a 53% from the audience score, which Rotten Tomatoes affiliates with a nice little garbage can on its website.
Yeah, very split. Very split. Yeah. Very controversial rating or mixed rate reviews.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, we can't base our own judgment entirely off of the internet and what other people think of this film, obviously. But it is very interesting to see how split the reviews are, and basically the rating split is between critics and general audience. Because from what you were saying and from what I'm seeing on the internet, the critics are giving it a generally positive feedback. And it's the general audience consensus that's telling us, I don't know, I think it's garbage, and the other half are saying, well, I think it's good. So I don't know. It's very interesting to see that.
Yeah, I understand it. The thing is, I see both sides. I get kind of where both parties are coming from, and yeah, I'm curious if this was almost kind of like, again, I'm not using it in the anime terms, I guess maybe it was like more fan service, like if you read the book, you're really going to love this kind of a thing. It's like, this is for fans, which when things are adapted from things that people love, I'm like, yeah, why not serve the fans? For instance, like Castlevania on Netflix, love it because I also play the games all throughout my life, and it's purely those games, it's awesome. And maybe if I was a fan of the book, I would like this movie more, Well,
I think too, it's really like a technical appreciation with this kind of show too, because I think there are a lot of, and this is nothing against, British television on my part. I don't really watch a lot of British TV shows. Again, it's not me hating on the British television. It's just like, I just don't watch a lot of British TV shows. But with this show in particular, I think for me, it was just a little hard for me to get into from the beginning, a little stiff to follow with the younger David Copperfield character when it was just him as a boy, because it started off and it was Dev Patel being the older David Copperfield saying, "Let me tell you about myself. This is me when I was younger. This is how I was born." And that started off very nicely. I'm thinking to myself, wow, okay, I understand. I can follow this. Very smooth sailing. I get it. This is cool. And then when the child David Copperfield kind of took over and took the reins, and I didn't get that older character kind of guiding me along, then I had a little bit of a hard time following what are the characters telling me, what is his life now, and is that boathouse real, and who's important here, because I've got like 10 or 15 different characters showing up, and which one is important and which one is the main character. And it seemed much more like David Copperfield's character, it's his story, but it seemed much less like this story was about him, and it seemed much more like he was kind of like the puppet, and the supporting characters are now holding the strings, as it's like we're learning about his story, but each one of those supporting characters is kind of like, let me tell you about my life, and this is how you play into it, David Copperfield, and this is my life, and now this is how you're going to integrate into it, David Copperfield, and oh, my name is this character, I'm your stepfather, and this is how you are a part of this life now, David Copperfield, and every single one of them kind of comes into it, and he sort of reintroduces that later in the movie. He's kind of like, oh, by the way, this is my stepfather, and this is where he was, and this is this character, Mr. Dick, and this is how he acted like this, and he sort of reiterates that later, and I really appreciated that scene when he did that, but I didn't get that until like an hour and a half into the movie out of 2 hours. And I was like, damn, I've been waiting for you to tell me why all of these supporting characters were important. So thank you. But I didn't get that until the very end of the movie. So I've been sitting here watching this entire movie confused as hell. Like, what in the hell are all these people doing? Oh, thanks, David Copperfield, for finally telling me the importance of these 15 characters that I had no idea how they all integrated to your life. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's just, it was kind of a mess in that regard. The other nice thing, though, that was good about this movie was the scene transitions that they used. They would kind of bring it up like he was already an author. This whole movie is sort of, I'm going to say, alluding to him becoming an author. And the scene transitions that they would use were like scripture, where it would come up like he's writing a book, and it would be like, it would come up and say, my aunt's fascinating cousin. And then it would go into a scene about his aunt's cousin. Mm-hmm. And then it would go on, the scene would go on, and then another scene would come up and it would say, my learning day and future prospects. And he would use these scripture titles as transitions, and it would look like he's writing into the book. And
it's
that was
like
nice.
George Lucas in Love. You know, or Shakespeare in Love. Basically, it's like this great writer, and we learn about, you know, where they got all their ideas from, you know. Like if you ever go watch the short film on YouTube, George Lucas in Love, and he goes through all these like things that remind him of Jabba the Hutt and Han Solo, and, you know, these two guys that end up being an inspiration for C-3PO and his professor, and R2-D2, and his professor ends up being the inspiration for Yoda. And yeah, it's almost kind of like this, like, you know, feature-length film that is, maybe thing is, like, I really like George Lucas in Love because I love Star Wars and I know about George Lucas and stuff. So like I got all of these references. So maybe if I knew more about the character David Copperfield, maybe like, oh, this is where he gets his stories from, blah, blah, blah. You know, like I would pick up on it. So maybe I'm just out of the loop. You know, maybe that's why I didn't really understand, like you said, like I didn't really understand why these characters matter until the end, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe that was it. I don't know. I'm trying to be merciful. I'm trying to like get, I don't know, give it the benefit of doubt. Because I liked all these people, you know, like right. I loved all these actors and they were so funny together, and it was like exquisite. And I do actually like British drama and British television, and I don't watch a ton of it, but I do like it. And I love period pieces. And this is a Victorian era. It reminds me of when I was in The Importance of Being Earnest, playing Algernon Moncrief my senior year of college, which is the favorite play I've ever done in my entire life. I loved it so much, and studying so much about Victorian England, it brought me back there. I loved it. And the feeling of this movie feels so good. It's just the plot of it. It's just kind of like all over the place, you know? Yeah. Maybe it's not so much the direction. It's more of the screenplay. The screenplay doesn't build enough. It doesn't build enough, you know, like we should have got more references to why these people matter and how they are all tied together earlier on, you know, instead of the end, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that was what had me confused, is when he goes to live when he gets kicked out of the first house he lives in with Peter Capaldi, and he gets his stuff stolen. It's kind of like, wait, so what's going to happen with Peter Capaldi now? Are we just going to lose him? Like, is he going to go try and find Peter Capaldi? Maybe not. Okay, so he goes to his aunt's place, and it's like, okay, so this is his aunt, and he's going to be with his aunt, and he starts talking to Hugh Laurie's character, Mr. Dick, and as he's talking to Mr. Dick, I know nothing about Hugh Laurie's character, Mr. Dick, and as they try to kind of talk to each other and have a conversation, I still don't understand anything about him. And is that just supposed to be the gist? Me not understanding Mr. Dick's character at all? I guess so, but there's got to be something to do with the kite that Mr. Dick has. And he explains, it's kite flying time. And they go to fly a kite. And they do that a few different times. And they're sipping tea as they go kite flying. And as they do that, then as I'm watching this movie, I'm still thinking, why are they flying kites? Like, what do they gain by building these kites and flying kites?
Peter Capaldi and Hugh Laurie blended. I was like, wait, who's who? They look so much alike. Mr. Macabre, Peter Capaldi's character, and Mr. Dick. I was like, wait, they're two different guys? The mannerisms a little similar too.
One of them's homeless and one of them just acts like it. So
yeah. Well, anyway, I think it's about that time, buddy. Let's move into our final review of this, our slurps up, slurps down section. So, folks, if you're new to us, this is the time of the show where we give our final verdict. We give it a slurps up if we like it and we recommend it. We give it a slurps down if it's the opposite, if we don't like it and we don't recommend it. And we give some thoughts that may, give it the different levels in between if they vary. But with that said, Mr. Adam, what is your final verdict and final thoughts for the personal history of David Copperfield?
Well, with this film, there is not a doubt in my mind that from a technical level in terms of cinematography and costume design, in set design, everything on the technical spectrum, and especially with the actors as well, with the casting, it's definitely just an A+. It is just fantastic. I think this film really delivers on that level, and I think they're all fantastic. Dev Patel especially is fantastic. Hugh Laurie is great. Tilda Swinton's great, and I'm not gonna count anyone out. I'm just gonna stop naming names, but they're all just fantastic in this movie. And I think in terms of the movie, if there is any doubt in my mind about what the film is lacking in or what I had a hard time with, I'd say it's just following what the story is really about. With my explanation of that, it's like I was saying earlier, I think David Copperfield's character to me seemed a little bit more like a puppet and less like this movie was like him being the leader and controlling everything. He seemed more like he was like the puppet, like the marionette, and all of the supporting characters were in control of the strings, and it was all their stories, and David Copperfield was kind of like the one kind of integrating himself into their stories a little bit until the final end of the movie, where he's kind of like, and now I'm going to write a book about all of this where I fit into all of this. That may not make sense when I say that in this statement, but it will make complete sense if you watch this movie. And I will say I would still suggest at least watching this movie. I thought it was still enjoyable to watch this movie. I'm not going to say it's a bad movie. I think this is definitely an enjoyable movie. I think it's worth viewing, and I think the film definitely succeeds in playing off of the genres of other films and the way that the movie looks. It's an interesting film. It's definitely interesting. I struggled a little bit to get through certain spots, but I think it still succeeds in much of what it does. I will definitely give this movie a slurps up.
Cool. I think I'm around the same wavelength as you. Yeah. Actors, performances, just tremendous, great chemistry between so many people. People stood out, even if, Peter Capaldi and Hugh Laurie looked alike, they still stood out and were very unique within each other. And everybody had their great place here in this story, but it was hard to tell. It was hard to understand and follow sometimes. The aesthetic choices were really great. It's just, I would prefer if they're a little more steady. I wouldn't remove them. I don't know. I wanted a little more of a smoothness, a little more of them, really. And yeah, the set designs, the locations, the costumes were just all just spot on, beautiful, incredible. Yeah, as I said earlier, there's some critiques on the screenplay, a little bit of the direction, and I think as I said before, I think I probably would have enjoyed it more if I had read the book, the Charles Dickens book. But with that, I still don't dislike this movie. I still enjoyed a lot of it. It was a movie which I enjoyed scenes. I enjoyed a lot of different scenes. If it was like broken up to like a TV series, it'd be cool. If it was like, half hour here, half hour there. It was like a mini series. That would have been really cool, because it would have been, I think, a little more digestible. But with that, I recommend it still. I still say it's a good movie. It's not my favorite, and I had to focus on staying with it the whole time, but it was still good. It was still worth seeing. So with that, I'm going to give it a slurps up, and I'm going to recommend you all to check it out at least once.
Yeah.
So with that, thanks everyone for sticking around for a review of the personal history of David Copperfield. And look out, at least go watch the trailer for The Green Knight, starring Dev Patel. And it's a movie by our favorite studio, A24, which, oh man, it looks so good.
And maybe they can make a David Bronzefield or an Ironfield or a Goldfield.
What?
I mean, they've got David Copperfield. I'm just saying we can get the next mineral family going here.
Gotcha. Good one, Adam. Good one, bud.
I'm just saying.
You nailed it. Anyway, folks, it's about that time. It's our solo plug time. That's right. It's time the show where we ask you to please go check out some stuff that we do besides Screen Slurps. Keep listening to Screen Slurps. Keep checking it out. And check out our solo stuff. So a solo stuff, I don't know why I'm talking like this. A solo thing. Solo plug from Dash Gerhardt. Sorry. Anybody talks like that, you're wonderful. Keep talking like that. I'm sorry.
Baby.
Go check out my stream. I stream on Twitch. I play video games and I do other fun things on my channel. So please follow me at twitch.tv/-jhart. That's twitch.tv/DASHJAYHART. Adam, what are your solo plugs or just solo plug?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Adam Meisner, and you can also find me on SoundCloud at Adam Meisner, and I put music online, and I put original songs and covers up there, and if you want to hear something, just let me know. I post originals, I post covers, just let me know what you want to hear. I put it up there.
Hell yeah. Can you do a cover of The Power of Love by Huey Lewis?
I would love to do that. I appreciate that. Do the instruments first and then the lyrics. And don't take money, don't take fame, don't need no credit card to ride this train. Stronger than... I gotta find the lyrics now. It might just save your life. That's the power of love. That's the power of love.
So you cover it, and we'll film me on a skateboard, hanging onto a pickup truck going through town, just listening to your music. Anyway, that wraps up for this episode of Screen Slips, everyone. Thanks for listening, and please be sure to like/follow us on social media. We release new episodes every Monday on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and just about everywhere you can find podcasts on the internet. And please be sure to follow and subscribe to us on those platforms. And if you like our show, please give us a nice 5-star review on the Apple Podcast app. It will definitely help us, and please recommend us to everyone in your multiverse. It will definitely help the show grow. We really appreciate it.
Yes,
and
please.
We're working on making the show bigger and better. So the more that you like us, the more you talk about us, whether you're in the United States, in Norway, in India,
anywhere.
Listen to us. Thank you so much. In Russia, in the Middle East, in Africa, Japan, Latin America, anywhere in the world. We appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Please keep tuning in for Screen Slips. So closing out, this is Dash Gerhardt.
And I'm Adam Meisner.
Slurps up, and we'll catch you all
later.